And so, with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as the things grow in the fast movies, I had that familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer. F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. This similar mentality is portrayed in the Jewish Renewal of the mid-20th century. Jonathan Sarna depicts the community's collective quest for happiness, tranquility, and self-fulfillment in the aftermath of more than a decade of unrelenting tragedy. From the refugees and survivors of the Holocaust laboring to preserve the very culture the Nazis sought to destroy, to the indispensable role Israel played in American Jews' lives, not forgetting the emergence and liberation of women and the surged emphasis on spirituality, Judaism experienced a gratifying and dynamic transformation. The first major theme that leapt from the periphery of Jewish life to the center was the Holocaust. American Judaism experienced deep and lasting effects for more than 300,000 refugees, survivors, and displaced persons from Europe who found refuge in America between 1933 and 1955. They experienced an incomparable extermination and now wanted to finish their education and reconstruct their economic lives and communal lives. They are persistent in trying to regain their bearings after the traumas of what they suffered in Germany. One of the most important themes in this specific renewal was to never forget, but also rebuild and start life anew. For German Jews and other refugees, keeping memories and hopes alive formed a central centerpiece of their faith. The bonds the Jewish people share because of their overbearing hardships and downfalls are unbreakable. The idea of never forgetting the past is a message that will be carried from generation to generation forever. Continuity was portrayed in this major theme because the Jews promised to never forget, meaning they will always preserve their somber and painful memories but renew their lives by working to rebuild. The second theme was to recreate the culture the Nazis sought to destroy. The YIVO Institute, destroyed by the Nazis in Vilna and recreated in New York by survivors, became the institutional center for memorializing the Holocaust. Furthermore, Abraham Joshua Heschel of the Jewish Theological Seminary proposed the creation of a Hasidic archive to preserve the history and the teachings of the Hasidic masters lost to the Nazis. Some Orthodox immigrants went further and transformed Brooklyn neighborhoods of Williamsburg, Crown Heights, and then Borough Park into citadels of faith on the model of East European Hasidic courts that were lost during the European catastrophe. Though the American Jews were able to move on with their lives, they firmly stressed that the Nazis had lost the war because their religion and people could never be eliminated. The American Jews wanted to prove their exceptionalism and chosenness by proving that they would never perish no matter how much effort a group exerted to do so. In our unit of Am Segula, we studied an Orthodox commentary from the complete Ark Scrolls Siddur, proclaiming that the Jewish people do not have the same destiny as the other nations. We endure pain and suffering, yet we are never destroyed. The American Jews simultaneously paid homage to those who perished and proclaimed victories over those who murdered them. The themes of Israel and the Holocaust were incubated together, nourished by engaged subgroups like Holocaust survivors and Zionist activists, and reinforced by Jewish educators. The establishment of the state was described as the most dramatic and perhaps most significant event in post-exilic Jewish history by the American Jewish Yearbook. In the beginning, Israel was largely peripheral to American Judaism, but Israel began to play a heightened role in American Jewish consciousness in the 60s, tandem with the rise of Holocaust awareness. There was a huge thrust of support and care for Israel through philanthropy, mission tours, and pilgrimages for religious experience. A program attracting Jews of all ages today is Birthright, in which Jews get to explore all of Israel and its beautiful culture. The Jews acknowledge the importance of integrating their American lives and progressing communities while still connecting to Israel and expressing their gratitude. The American Jews during this renewal period believed that even if they wouldn't live there, though some performed Aliyah and did, the mere necessity to experience Israel, a land that has been desired by our people from biblical times, can never be revoked. A program created during the mid-20th century and praised still today is March of the Living. The Reformed Jews of the mid-1900s linked the Holocaust with the renewal of life in Israel. This notion of death and birth symbolizes the trajectory of the Jewish people, beginning with the constant death during the Holocaust to the energy and renewal by the establishment of Israel. Connecting back to the chosenness, the Ark Scroll Siddur states that such powerful empires as Egypt, Persia, Greece, Rome, and the Carthage have disappeared or become inconsequential, but God does not act this way in regards to Israel. The Chavurah movement and the authors of the Jewish Catalog contributed to a new spirit they came to characterize as the awakening of Jewish ritual observances and spirituality. Both spurred many of these changes by focusing on intimacy and worship in family-like settings rather than large impersonal sanctuaries. There were cozier religious settings so they could worship far less formally, and formal sermons became replaced by interactive discussions and words of Torah prepared by lay members. All these changes led to personal and spiritual growth. Worship in comfortable settings that are less performance-oriented led to greater connection with their souls and God. Jews were able to focus more on prayer and learning because the experience became less operatic and more participatory. All throughout my education, I have always enjoyed and appreciated the intimate prayer time with classmates and after reflection with the rabbi. The Reform movement made some substantial revisions. Men wore head coverings and women wore prayer shawls to temple, allowing women to wear the same religious garbs as men for the first time. Even though the Reform movement continuously discarded customs and practices that did not meet the progressing times, it acknowledged the different customs that sanctified the Jewish worshiping. In addition, the Jewish spiritual revitalization led by Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach and Esther Jungris sought to reacquaint American Jews with their spiritual past. The best way to uplift souls and help the youth discover beauty in prayer is through music and meditation. The emotions evoked and beauty elicited in prayer transformed all the Jews and especially healed the lost Jewish hippies. The essential obligation of the chosen people is to never lose connection with God because of their particular covenant with Him. The Jews of the revitalization understood and accentuated this responsibility by so striving to renew this aspect of Judaism. The woman emancipation final theme had a full turnaround in the Renewal period. The conservatives in the 1940s began calling the woman to the Torah during Simchat Torah, and then a year later, the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards accepted the calling of women to the Torah on a regular basis. It became a well-established ceremony, later spreading throughout American Judaism and then to Israel. With the introduction of the bat mitzvah at age 12, feminism's second wave burst upon the American scene in the 60s. There was a need for equality and liberation, a theme that really sprung during this era in American history too with civil activism. They were thankful to be created women, and as seen in 1972 when the women of Ezrat Nashim appeared uninvited at the annual Rabbinical Assembly convention to present demands that asked for equality, their determination could not be stopped. Though the concept of chosenness refers to the Jewish nation being more treasured and held higher by God than other nations, in this feminist movement, the women proved how they are just as chosen as the men are. None until the 20th century ever held the title of rabbi, and that solely was a huge accomplishment. I am so honored to be a woman in a religion that never before comprehended even the idea of having a woman rabbi. To think that if it weren't for these bold women, I would not have had a bat mitzvah is beyond words. Studying Talmud, even in the Orthodox circles, being called up to the Torah, donning prayer shawls, dancing with the Torah, and becoming rabbis all emerged with the woman's end to second-class status in Jewish life.